I am Przemek, your host for today's Summer of AI event, and I will help facilitate and moderate this event. The event is Chasing the Fantastical Promise of AI, delivered by Chuck Geigner from Technology Services. This presentation will focus on the critical and, at times, possibly irreverent discussion of marketing, reality, expectations, costs, and who's winning. Also, risks and trade-offs when deploying and feeding Gen AI tools, including data stewardship and governance. Attendees will gain a deeper understanding of what's at stake and how to critically engage. The recording of this video presentation will be available at a later date. Please subscribe to the Summer of AI newsletter to stay informed about related AI tips. If you have any questions throughout this event, do not hesitate to place them in the online chat or the Q&A tab, or to raise your arm if you're physically in the room. A host will collect your questions and notify the presenter. A thumbs up on your message or question will be used to confirm your question was received by the host. If you enjoy this event, then there is more to attend. Learn more about our upcoming Summer of AI sessions, workshops, or panel discussions, either in person or remote. View the calendar or the Summer of AI website. Summer of AI concludes next Thursday already. We only have a few sessions left. Without any further ado, Chuck Geigner.
Thank you, Przemek. Okay. Yeah, that was a mouthful, and it's an honor to be invited to the Summer of AI to present as a critical viewpoint, which is interesting, right? I'm gonna talk a little bit about myself so you can know just kind of a little bit of who I am. Right, farting around with computers before they were cool. 1981, totally serious software engineering since 1993, which is actually not too much different from the first line, except for whatever. I picked up some new languages. Fully Unix bearded since 96. Network hack ISP maven back in the days of dial-up. Self-proclaimed internet owner since 1997. And I have been an information security and privacy professional dedicated since about 2006. I've been here since 2008, sort of. We're not going to talk about that stint at Jimmy John's. And of course, questioning everything since. Asked my mom. She said forever. Thanks, Mom. And very probably ADHD, according to my son, who did a very non-scientific evaluation of me. And of course, my favorite report card comment from my third grade teacher to my mom: Chuck is very bright, but Chuck does not listen. So my last part is I am trying very hard to listen these days and not just fill up the space with words and me talking, because we're all here to solve problems, and the best solutions come when we all get together. And of course, when Chuck finally listens. So on to the next one. What I'm here to do, what I'm not here to do. Like, being the contrarian is kind of hard. We'll get into that a little bit, but I'm not here to be a cop. I'm not here to halt everyone. I'm not here to freak out about AI or take an us versus them kind of mentality, or tell you it's all junk, or tell you that the sky is falling, that we're all doomed, or dictate anything to anybody. I'm also not here to swoon over it because I'm the guy that questions things, or I am not here to convince you that I am right, or conversely, that anything that anyone has ever thought about AI in this audience or anywhere else is wrong. I'm not here to be great at PowerPoint. You'll laugh at the slides. It's just here to facilitate the discussion. Also, on the last one, I'm not here necessarily to speak for technology services, although I will put an asterisk on that, in that my entire job is to help people understand about risk, especially information and information technology risks that we stare down every day. So in that vein, maybe I do a little, but I know that technology services is my employer, and they may not agree with me on a lot of this. So what I am here to do, obviously, I said I'm here to ask questions. My mom would not be surprised, right? I take a critical eye to lots of things. I get introspective about it. It's part of one of the reasons I'm in technology is because at the beginning I wanted to know everything about it because I didn't know if I trusted it, and I didn't know what it could do for us as human beings, because I had to think about it like I'm a technologist second because I'm a humanist first. So I want to ask your help about thinking through things with me on this. Of course, this is a great subject, changes every day. The things that I was looking at and adding to the slides and sticking in my head, nothing is older than the beginning of 2025. As a matter of fact, like half the stuff happened within the last 2 weeks that I was really looking at, because this is just spinning and spinning and spinning, and the rules are changing as we talk about it. So I want to look at interesting data points. I want to start the discussion mostly about risk and outcomes. All right, big picture thinking. What are we really looking to get out of this, and what are we willing to risk to get there? Right. And of course, just a reminder myself, I'm also here to listen again, so that we can find paths to understanding and answers, both mine and yours, reinforce some things we already learned and know, and give some perspective. And of course, I want to keep it light and thoughtful, mostly with lots of self-deprecating humor. So let's jump into it. We mentioned that this is hard. I don't know if I need to go back and look at all the rest of the Summer of AI videos, but I might be the one that was invited to be here because I'm not sure about it, right? I'm still trying to develop like what we really want to do with it, what it's actually able to do, what it could do, what people are having it do. Well, I'm watching everybody else take a lot of risks, right? And so I'm kind of nail biting. And it all started with this LinkedIn post that somebody came across, said, "Oh, Chuck's got questions," right? And mostly it's talking about, hey, it's got a lot of this momentum, and I've seen technologies with momentum before, since I've been doing this since the 80s, but this is different, right? And when it does that, I start asking questions, but maybe the marketing voices were the things that were speaking the loudest, and I didn't like the answers I was getting. It was maybe some non-answers, or some marketing fluff answers, or hand wavy stuff. And again, I got into technology because I didn't want there to be any magic inside any of it. I wanted to know how it all worked and what it was going to do for us. And I really couldn't tell on this one. So of course, and I saw the FOMO comment in there, was the fear of missing out, right? Like the marketing message was way different, in that this is the first time I think I heard that if you were missing out, you were missing out big, right? So let's talk about that a little. What is AI going to do for us? What could it do for us? What should it do for us? Right? What do we want it to do for us, right? Like the message I hear is, you're going to be missing out, and the people who are doing this will be leading as innovators. They will be leading the charge, and it's about gaining advantage in whatever space you're operating in. And the implication is that it seems to be almost a promise that you're going to jump way out ahead of anybody who lags behind, like guys like me who stop to question it, right? Like, and do we ever lose? So yeah, that fear of missing out is there. Being critical, might slow us down. That's the implication. That's what I kind of heard from it, which all of a sudden made me realize that, that the way I think about it and the way I even frame questions about it could be seen as, throwing the anchor out or dragging us back or, doing something like that. And I still didn't even know what I wanted to think about it because, as soon as I was thinking that, everybody was all off the blocks and doing all sorts of stuff. And you read about it in all of the technology mags at every news site. Yeah, questioning, the idea is questioning it is not as exciting as just going for it. Right. And that resonates with me. That's hero stuff, shoot in technology, shooting from the hip and guessing right and being the hero. That that's some kind of Wild West like coolness, right? Like if you could pull that off and do that for your organization, right? That sounds great. But you have to go back to the marketing, right? And asking the questions. I know, does this, does that? You're really focusing on what it does, what it will do, what it could do. Like what are the possibilities? And they're really loud about this. We're gonna vibe code our way to awesomeness. It's gonna write all of our analysis. It's gonna automate everything. It's gonna write our reports. It's gonna unit test my code release. What? It's gonna make art. I I'm gonna go back to the humanist part of me. That makes my skin crawl just a little bit, but I see it all over the place, and and they really want you to ask the question, what is it going to do, right? What is it going to do for you? How are you going to they're not asking if you're going to put it in your organization. They're asking you how and when and in what ways and how quickly. So yeah, how it differs from past things. I mean, we even in the recent past, like we all went through cloud technologies. Everything went from on-prem, right? We were running large data centers full of stuff, and then all of a sudden the cloud came in. We said, okay, maybe there's some savings there, and then we moved it out there. But it isn't that. I mean, that was kind of like this. The accountants came in and told us it made good financial sense, and then the technologists went, yeah, it could, and then we kind of it's not that. It wasn't, gosh, I'm thinking all the way back to when, the Pentium processor was produced, right? And Intel and had a heyday, and they had, ticker tape parades and everything else, but it was still just, I don't know, it's a CPU. Like, yeah, it's cool, right? We all went out, but this is different. This is like the scope of the thing that they are promising has grown to a size that I have never seen before. They're like, this will change the world. The world will run on AI, and almost every part of it is going to be touched. And you got to start figuring out how that is going to work, what that's going to look like, where you are sitting right now. Not just as technologists. In fact, I don't think they appealed to the technologists first. They went right to our boss. They went right to the boss's boss. They went right to the big boss. You got CEOs pushing this down, make this happen. And that across the board, I think, is what makes it different. Because we usually, they in the past, they would come to us and be like, I don't know, we got this new technology. What do you think? Right. And you'd kind of get together and go, yeah, it's got these benefits, right? They would I think this is the first time the marketers went right to the top and made it work in that way. At least that's my impression. And now we are where we are. But the point I really want to Impress is, does everyone really know what it runs on and what's valuable, right? To get the magic, all it takes is money and information, right? You got to feed it. You got to feed it. It's got to train. The number one thing they're saying that you feed the AI with is the information from your organization. And of course, yeah, I put in there just a sleight of hand. Is this the Jedi mind trick? Like, as much as you can spare, all of it would be perfect, right? It'll run better if you give it everything. And I added that last line, right? Like, you have access to all of it. I know you do. Like, here's the thing about being technologists. We do, like, we work on the thing and the information is right there. We work with it every day and it's saying, let's see what we can do for you with the AI. Feed it the information. And it's implied that the information, right, like you have it there and just to push it in would be nothing. However, it seems like they're not wanting us to think very, very hard about what that means or what that costs, or even long and right, or even maybe if you are thinking about it, maybe short term, not long term. And I'm going to take a 2-minute detour. Like, this isn't a new idea. Like, I'm not saying we just started kind of thinking this way about information or data. And I wondered if it was like a perversion of the old hacker anthem, information wants to be free, which is actually a commentary about censorship, which I found funny. But if you just say that information wants to be free, and then you go to item 2, which is because privacy is already dead, right? Even if you wanted your information to stay private, or if you wanted to hang on to your information, privacy is dead. You know, that nihilistic, like, we should just do it because it doesn't matter kind of thought, which makes me a little sad, mainly because they're kind of right, but it doesn't, it stops you from thinking of, it might be that way for us, but wouldn't you want to make it better for your children? Right? Like, hey, maybe my information is already in this thing because we don't have good safeguards and we never have, and it all got out, right? The last one is it's too late. Everything's already been hacked. Everything's already been breached. All the information has left the barn. But thinking about controls isn't necessarily about salvaging our own situation, right? It's about thinking ahead just a little. And so I'm still there. Like, it's like, I don't know what that plays like. I don't want to be like the information martyr, like, oh, you know, my situation is already dire and done, but maybe later. But really, that is true. And I do still think about that. There is hope. So the nihilistic, techno-nihilist people, I disagree with that, even though they're right, and I hate to admit it. It is, but it isn't right. It isn't about me. So I don't know. And then I had this other thought. I mean, the marketing on AI makes it seem just super cool, right? Like, you're gonna be you're gonna be heroes. You're gonna solve all the stuff. We're gonna we're gonna plug in all this awesomeness. We're gonna get all the value. But you still have to put in something that has actual value to trade for something that might. So just from a pure abstracted economic level, I'm thinking, I immediately thought of the cool kids on the block, right? Like, when I was a kid, right? Like, maybe I was a little awkward, I was a little ADHD, I was a lot younger than the kids on my block, and there were, you know, like, the cool kids, right? Wanted to hang out with them, and was never cool enough to do it, but possibly when you had something that they wanted, they might call you over and you can hang out with them. When I was a kid, it was baseball cards. I picked the foil Charizard because there was a story that stuck in my head about what people that are my son's age. Same thing. The cool kid thing happens, I think, in every neighborhood and every time, right? Where you can hang out with us. All you do is you got to give us this cool Pokemon card and you can be cool. I don't know if that's right or not, but it just stuck in my head and it made the presentation because I thought, gosh, our information might be the most valuable thing in this equation, especially as a university with HR data, research data, uh, all the data we generate just as an operation. And I'm not convinced that this isn't that. And so the invitation there is to really think hard about what we are trading and what we are getting, right? I mentioned the regret / hangover period of that. You gave them the foil Charizard. You got to be cool. Then they were done with you because they got what they want. And you might not have gotten everything that you wanted out of that, but they had the thing of value. I think I'm getting ahead of myself. Yep, vibing with the cool kids. So handing data over to get theoretical strategic value might need more scrutiny. And really, that's the thought I want to plant from this presentation. It isn't to scare everybody off of AI. It's just to be thoughtful about what we're trading and what we're getting. And yes, I actually did go out and talk with ChatGPT because I felt it would be, I don't know, I don't think it'd be good for him to develop an opinion without interacting with a lot of different things. So, and I did read a lot of news articles, but I did sit down and have the talk. And of course, I asked if the promise of awesome AI things is worth relinquishing control of entire bodies of organizational data. And as an aside, I love it. Every time I ask ChatGPT a question, it wanted to compliment me obsequiously when it answered. That is a very sharp and essential question. That's a very cutting and insightful question. Like I was like, oh, is this really wanted to butter me up? I went back in and I need to ask it about that later. Anyway, but it said, data is power and risk, and giving up the data to train and feed the AI systems is like handing over the blueprint, right? Like the last line is what it said. You can't untrain the AI once your data is in. So it's not like we could put it in and then do something and then get it back. That is, if we're using the commercial models, because we're sending it right into the cloud, into the right, however it's organized within the LLM, the large language model that it's using, where the solution is always more data, more training. So yeah, it's one way, which I was happy that it confirmed. Like, so that takes us into the other part. So if we're using the data and we're making these decisions, the other part is how do we make the decisions and who makes these, right? The temptation is just to take the information that you have for your job and see if you can do some cool stuff with it. However, we have so many different kinds of information, it's hard to tell whether or not we are the right people to be just doing that. For all the kinds of data that I listed here, plus probably a bunch that I didn't think of, right? Some of them are easy, like student information, like FERPA information. Like if I had a question about that, I would know who to call. That would be the university registrar. Like she would and would be the perfect place to call and have a great conversation about what I was thinking about doing and what I thought it might get us and get her thoughts on it. And of course, the registrar would come up with probably a great set of questions to fire back at me, many of which I might not even have an immediate answer for. Like, so there would be a back and forth about the information, the regulations around the information. In that case, it would be like FERPA and things like that, and what the actual requirements are by law. There's also additional privacy requirements. It's not necessarily within regulation, but sometimes there's a question of how we want to handle things as a matter of what our sensibility is on privacy and quite honestly, who we want to be as an institution. That's a really, like, does UIUC have soul searching instances? There's one of them. Who do we want to be to everyone else in the world when we are making decisions about private information that we hold in vast repositories? And it isn't always what the law says. Sometimes it's that plus, things we find right or reasonable, or within regulations in places that aren't in the US, like GDPR, like we talk a lot about the European Union and the privacy laws, or even other states like California has a great set that's just specific to California. Do we want to meet that standard? Is that going to become the standard? Right? There's all sorts of questions that go beyond just having the data in a database or in a repository at the push of a button. You could do it, but who do you need to talk to first? Like, who actually can make that decision? And also, the other part, when the data was originally collected, was AI part of the quote unquote deal? Like, did we know enough to tell everybody that when we were collecting that information that we were going to do this? And some of it we've been collecting for so long that I don't know if we could, because AI wasn't even right. We couldn't even anticipate that this is what it has become. So really, that's all governance. And we're trying to get good at this as we go. The train's already left the station, and we realize that data governance is a big deal. And we have, right, I think there's a lot of data governance committees on campus right now. And that's good. It's because I don't think me saying it isn't going to kick it off the blocks, because it's already there. Everybody knows this is a thing. I just want to put it in there that, right, like we're trying to get just the goodness that we can out of this while we do it, and get the governance so that, right, so that we can make these decisions fast, because we still have to move fast. Like, we don't want to lag behind or, look like we're, confused about how to proceed or anything like that, right? So what strategic governance needs to be on top of the stewardship kind of equation is already happening, and my office is part of that too, and so I'm listening to those conversations with bells on, because we really need that in order to get, so that we can move rapidly if we're going to, put the stewardship and governance process in there in a way that keeps us agile. So this is about the midpoint. I want to tell you, I'm all proud of you for questioning things with me. I love the audience today. I didn't know if anyone was going to come. And I said, I got to check for people flowing out of the exits, but I just, I'm happy for the the participation and of course, like just planting the seed and having you all go back to your corners of the campus and then furthering this. Because I don't want to stand in the way of it, right? Because people are like, "Oh my God, what's Chuck is going to go talk about AI," and I don't know if he really likes it, right? He's like he said some very critical things, but I want the university to win. I work here because I believe in the product. So if we're going to do awesome things, let's make it the best that we can and make sure we go in and do it really thoughtfully. And of course, agilely, right? We can't clunk around. We gotta move fast. I talked about this next point a little bit. I said, if you push the data into a commercial AI LLM, you cannot get it back out. However, if you run Gen AI with its own LLM and you build it on-prem, of course, everybody that ever said like, hey, let's get the scalability that you can get in the cloud, right? There's a trade-off there, but sandboxing is kind of a discussion. Like if you want to push it in to see what it can do, but you don't want it to do that, maybe sandboxing is an option. And I just wanted to float that out there because not every AI application or instance needs to be in the cloud. And I love saying this as an old Unix guy. I ran Big Iron for years. It just makes my heart sing to think of racks and racks and racks of things and more jobs for more bearded guys like me right here on prem. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe just a little instance. Okay, you can do that. Uh, so, but that could go along with the data, kind of the data evaluation. Like if we're going to work with this kind of data and if the stewards say, yeah, that's good, but we don't want to share that information with the world in a way that we can never get it back out of the thing, sandboxing could be an idea. You set up test instance, which is great because then nobody gets to keep our foil Charizard or at least get it for cheap.
I have a question.
Question.
And it kind of hits that cloud kind of on-prem thing.
Mhm.
So we've been playing with, maybe we run an LLM on a computer on-prem. Or should we, and I might have asked you this before, hey, whatever.
Sure.
Or should we run it through, hey, NCSA, has it on their thing.
Sure.
Which keeps it, of course, out of OpenAI or whatever we're talking about. Is there a plus and a minus to those two models, or NCSA versus, hey, it's on our desktop here?
I guess it's probably gradations of supportability and scalability, right? The one that you set up on your local machine, right, is only going to do so much for you until it, right? Or it might do exactly what you want it to do. It depends on how much oomph it needs, right? How much horsepower. I mean, we're getting into the who's winning and who's losing, right? That's a really short one. The AI companies are winning and so is NVIDIA, right? That was the short answer to the who's winning question. It's hard to get the scalability of the big, right? Of OpenAI, however, the hard fought lessons in here, I'm going to skip to the second from the bottom, right? I'm going to go. I see a lot of stories, and I don't think this is here, but I see a lot of instances of people so excited about AI that I see what can only be described as testing in production. Let's just do it. Let me see. The biggest story this week was what? Replit AI. was, well, it's funny because it was a startup called Saster was trying to vibe code their entire existence into reality to see how fast they could do it. And Replit AI went rogue and deleted all of their production data, even after explicitly being told it was in a code lockout. And the unit testing for their code, they said, well, we were doing unit testing for the code, but they had the AI doing the unit testing. So if the AI was lying about the first thing, it was definitely lying about the unit testing. It's like when it goes off the rails, it seems to go off the rails badly. So figuring out what outcomes you want and testing specifically, like regression testing, sounds like it might still be fodder for people. Like you can do AI, but how much, like, which means our what we do as technologists doesn't go away. It just shifts. Now we have to make sure that the thing is doing what we do. We have a reliability testing, QA, and assurance all of a sudden become the name of the game, I think. And so, and that was a hard fought lesson. Like we learned that like back in IT years ago, like why we have test instances and why we like you might even have a simulated production in between that you and a production instance, like because we got burned so many times. But I don't want us to lose that lesson because I see it happening by places that look super polished and like they should know what they're doing, but then they are, yeah, they're testing in production. It's super scary.
There's a question online, and it's kind of actually back to the sandbox thing, but
Yeah.
Would Copilot or Illinois Chat be considered sandboxed? That's from Kate Tecto.
I don't know.
Illinois Chat can be, Illinois Chat is not. It should be considered not.
Okay.
It can be. It should, it's relatively fair. You can choose what LMM and what you want to use. Some of them are hosted locally. So it's very, I would say no, generally speaking.
So what would be an example of when it is considered?
So NCSA hosts some models. But much more than that, I don't know how sandbox it is, but NCSA does host those models, so. But again, you can put in with Illinois Chat specifically, you can put in using ChatGPT if you want to. So you can use whatever LLM.
Thanks, Jesse.
Online, so because like
Oh,
I picked up all of that.
oh, sorry.
The context might be.
Yeah, no, I work in IPC with Chuck.
It's Jesse Marsh.
Jesse Marsh, governance, risk, and compliance,
Thank you, Jesse.
and Illinois Chat is interesting.
So, yeah, whatever we make will only be as good as what we put into it. That's my opinion. So we can't let it take over. Yeah, Michelle.
Can I ask a question still?
Yeah.
On Sandbox, sorry, and
Yeah.
I'm totally naive, you know me, Chuck. I understand very little about all the technologies and the privacy and all that stuff. But I understand the value of a sandbox to be able to operate in a private environment. But to me, a sandbox is innovating, trying new things to decide whether or not we want to deploy it at scale. When you go from that sandbox environment to deploying at scale, let's say to campus, what happens to the privacy and to the concern that you may have about that?
Well, right, yeah, because then it's still about the data, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, so the question was, like, once you put the,
Yeah,
once
yeah.
you have a sandbox data set,
Yes.
and then you develop whatever it is you want to develop on top of it and get the solution that you want. If you're going to production
Yes.
and you need that scalability, right? Are you stuck, basically? Are you
That's my
stuck?
question,
Like,
yeah.
like we went into the sandbox because because
Because Chuck told me to do that.
yeah, Chuck said the sandbox is the best way to do it. That's what we did. And now we don't have to ask really hard questions about the data because it isn't escaping. And then we have some assurance around that. And right. And I think I don't like the answer to the next question, but the answer to your question probably has lawyers involved, right? How do you get assurance in the thing that has a default set? Like you would have to get the right agreement, I think, to do it at scale with something else where you had legal assurances that the right things were happening with the data in the right way, and you have to strike it with the right sort of company that would meet you halfway if you had needs that way. Do I know of anybody that does that right now? No, I do not.
So what I'm hearing from you is essentially it's gonna be, there will be a risk. Are we willing to take that risk? And
Yeah.
who is willing to, like you say, give the go of, yes, we're gonna take that.
Right.
Is that?
Oh, absolutely. And it's always about our appetite to take those kinds of risks. Like it isn't always 100% like risk free. Like that's not even realistic. I know how the place works, right? We make those kinds of decisions every day because it isn't just about, I work in privacy and cybersecurity and those are like one narrow slice of the whole business risk pie. So the people that make the really big decisions weigh that, and they weigh a whole bunch more, right? Liability, legal liability being another one, and right, like opportunity costs and for things that, yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
There's another question.
Yes.
Austin Cipher Smith asks, even with a sandbox LLM, any thoughts on risk of de-skilling? Will that hurt us in the long run?
De-skilling. Can you help me with that?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, I'm not using my normal microphone. Yeah, I'm thinking about this just from like so I work in a core facility with a lot of microscopes and training graduate students, and I've been in some discussions with other core facility directors and assistant directors where they might make their own chatbot, right? They might make their own chatbot so that people can go in and ask questions about that. And that sounds great because it gives someone access to help 24 hours a day. But at the same time, like if I go in and I see, they ask me for help and I see what they're doing, I might see, oh, yes, I can help them with this problem really easily, but they're also doing two or three other things wrong, and I want to address that. It's a good opportunity for learning. And I think to a smaller degree, I've seen people, maybe use Copilot to like make their email sound a bit nicer or that sort of thing. You're kind of offloading this, cognitive load, but also kind of learning process. So, I mean, are you kind of atrophying your skills in this sense?
I worry about that in well in VS Code even. Like VS Code, every time I crank up my IDE and it offers to have an AI assistant help me code, my question is always, is it starting or helping me finish? Right? Because full disclosure, like last time I used AI in a full production capacity is when I was authoring policy. But the way I did it was I authored the entire policy, and then I asked the generative AI if it was writing this sort of policy for a Big 10 research institution, what sections would it have and what would they assert? And I used that as kind of a sanity check to see if I had at least what it had, or if I agreed with what it, like, I didn't start with, you're the expert, you write the policy. I started with, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to use this as a side along sanity checker. And so when you talk about using it for email, I think it does atrophy it if you tell it just to, write me an email rather than sanity checking something that you already took a stab at.
Yeah, I guess it's just that barrier between sanity checking or, okay,
Right.
I'm getting a little lazy and I'm relying it on,
Right.
like if I if I had someone ask me, hey, could you review this paper? And I was like, oh, I don't really have time for that. Well, maybe the LLM could do that, and I'll take a look at it, make sure it's reasonable. I mean, at some point, the wrong person does that, or the person does that in not a careful way. So that's
Well,
that's kind of my main
yeah, and also, I mean, I had a series of 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 chats with Chat GPT about this presentation, and the more I asked it, the more it started to agree with me. It started to be critical with me, which made me laugh, because I don't necessarily want to have a discussion with anyone so that they can agree with me. It's nice to be right. It's nice to have people agree with you, whatever. But Ray said my goal is not to be right. My goal is to create the set of right questions and help everyone down a path of helping me question all of it and coming to the right set of answers so that we can move forward. And I don't think Chat GPT was ready to do that with me because it didn't understand it. It was so busy making me feel good about how cutting and incisive and wise my questions were that it forgot to challenge any of it. And it was funny because I was challenging the entire notion of generative AI, right? Basically doing lots of what it is already doing. And of course, the how is in there for sure. Since we're talking about the right questions, right? Just to recap, what we'll do, doing AI, are we doing AI? I put that in air quotes if you didn't see, but what does doing AI actually cost, right? How can we innovate and extract value without giving away the farm? And I actually didn't include in there, and leading at what we lead at already, like, and right, University of Illinois, that's a big deal. And I love being part of that. And what are we trading? Remember, what are we trading in the short term? What are we trading in the long term? That's a harder one. You got to put on your your future glasses and think really hard. That's a harder thing. The marketing maelstrom doesn't want you to do this or think about it much. That means it's a great exercise. What do we get in return in the short term and in the long term? And how can we measure how well any AI product is producing exactly what we want? And what guardrails should be in place? Yeah, what's reasonable? All of these things, right? Help me ask these questions, right? The better we get at asking and answering, the faster we can do it. And of course, speed, right? I'm not forgetting. All of this takes time. All of this invites you all to be dragging your feet and questioning it with me, but not to the point where we're not doing it anymore, right? We do it as fast as we can. And of course, I said I'm gonna let Chat GPT finish for me. The promise of awesome AI things is real, but so are the consequences of careless data exposure. See, it, like, at the end of that conversation, it was finishing my sentences for me. It's worth it if we have strong data boundaries and that the benefits are clear and measurable. So, yeah. I didn't put many images in there, but we had a side conversation about whether or not we should refer to the AI as a person. And I said, I prefer to refer to it as the toaster. So,
I thought for Galactica.
yes,
More of a comment, maybe an extension of your Pokemon card analogy. So back in the 70s, when I was a little kid, and my brother was one of the cool kids, very much like what you're talking about. And there was another little boy, he was fresh off the boat, East Asian. Don't know what country he came from, but he spoke English, didn't really have any friends. It becomes relevant later that he was East Asian. And it's not I mean, we get into exactly what he did, but the point is it was in the same realm as what this. Clearly the kid's interest was becoming friends with this very, very well-known, very cool kid. And my brother did exploit him in a different way, but same idea, for the same purpose, for the same advantage. And this kid figured it out. And so here's where the analogy, sort of extending your analogy maybe certainly reflects my worldview on this kind of thing. My brother and all of our friendship circle very quickly learned what karate was, because this was the 70s and no one had ever seen it before. And it was a lifetime interest in martial arts from then on. So I don't know if that's a useful piece of extended analogy for you, but if this blows back the ways you're describing, I don't know, maybe we're saying that the cattle are out of the barn and there's just no way to get them back. Maybe that's a problem. I honestly think that blowback could be educational for the entire AI infrastructure.
everybody wants to do the cool thing. And by far, like, because of just the phenomenon that it is in technology, I've never seen anything like it. It's probably the coolest of cool things that I've ever seen in technology. And that's what makes us jump a little faster, right? A little more rapidly, maybe a little more without looking than if it was just, it's funny I say, if it was just the cloud, if it was just whatever name your favorite vendor, scalable, infinitely software solution.
So this is before my time, but from all the research that I did on it and learning about it at school, I want to know how, in your opinion, how this compares to like the .com boom.
Oh my gosh. I was running a tech company when that happened, which gives me a really, really interesting seat for that whole thing. The .com bubble was more about corporate market valuations than the actual things they were doing. So that's how the bubble was built, right? Because everybody was throwing money into stocks associated with the things that were supposed to be getting us excited. And there's a little bit of analogy there. Like a lot of people who were jumping on the bandwagon didn't know anything about technology. They just saw it happening, right? And as a matter of fact, when I was running that company, I used to have people come to me on the regular asking me for my stock picks. I remember the one, it was like, I ran a company, we managed internet service providers, we ran all the technology, they did all the customer service stuff. And the customer service manager asked me who if I was going to buy right now, who would I buy? I said, I don't give stock picks. She says, just give me. So I gave her two. I think I gave her VA Linux and Red Hat back then. And she went out and bought like a bunch. And then all of a sudden the next week, she's like, you made me so much money, right? And then a month later, gone. It's gone, right? So This is on what Gartner now calls the hype cycle. Guess where AI is right now? I did check. It's over the peak. It's heading to what they call the trough of disillusionment. That doesn't mean it's going away. It just means I think the marketing thing has reached the crescendo and people are starting maybe to get a little bit of that hangover. Like maybe they've gone and done stuff with it. And they're still trying to, they're asking if it's actually paying off for them, what it's doing, which is a great thing to do after, right? You jumped on board, you're doing stuff, you know, stop engines, quick, quiet, check 6, see what everything looks like around you, check the surroundings, see what the value is. It's a great time to do it. So it doesn't mean it's going away, but it does mean I think everybody's thinking about checking, which is a good deal. Like that's a good thing to do. It's better than the bubble bursting and everything raining down, because that's what happened in 2001. Yeah.
Kate asks, do you have some resources or information to help us calculate the true cost of doing AI, including environmental and human costs?
Oh, okay. Kate, thank you for that question. There is a slide that I had on here if I had enough time. And basically it was, there is a concern about the actual human cost. Like, are we wasting all the water on the planet to feed AI? Are we making so much power and driving up the cost of power to where all of a sudden, low income people can no longer afford their power bills, right? Like, and that was on, part of the research cycle that I was on. Those questions are concerns. It's not there yet, but they're good questions because of the power costs and because we know, right? We run Blue Waters. Like, why is Blue Waters right next to the water tower? Why is it called Blue Waters? Right? Because it takes a lot of water, right? It takes a lot of water to cool that whole thing, right? And this is, it scales along those lines. So let your imagination run wild. Help me answer that question, because I don't know. People, we're asking the questions. I'm not sure we know what the answers are. It's tending towards things that are concerning, especially with global warming and everything else on the table. What are we doing to the planet if we're doing this as part of the solution? Make sure if it impacts, how are we offsetting that? Great question, Kate. Yeah.
First time, I wondered, seems like I missed the first couple of minutes, so apologies, but it seems like a real crux and tension of what you're talking about is question without paralysis.
Yes.
So do you have an example of either you feel like you waded through that well, or it didn't go so well upon hindsight of your speed at which to do this, right? Because things are accelerating.
Oh, sure.
So the incentives are almost like counteractive. It's like,
yeah, we're already off the blocks.
I'm off the fast train, but if I get on the right train, then I'll maybe beat the people whose train blew up this weekend, whatever that company is.
Oh,
yeah.
I think it's just, like the university is already off the blocks, and I don't know the sum total of all of the AI efforts. But I do see it all around me. I see some great stuff going on, right? At College of Business and Technology Services and NCSA, like just here in CITL, like the excitement is palpable, and like people are thinking about the possibilities, right? So it's about maturing that innovation mindset into a place that can move just as fast as it's moving right now while it's asking those questions. It's exactly right, because I want us to win, right? And not like just put the brakes on the whole thing because it's scary,
Sounds like It's almost like threading them rather than trying to serious.
It's yeah, it's kind of like a maturity model, like for innovation. Like when we're innovating at this level and we're thinking about these things, we're doing it at this level. I think there's like we can mature while we do this and think about it better and move just as fast. All right. Thanks, everybody.